It happened early in the morning on the outskirts of a quiet Canadian village in the province of Alberta. Silverfrost Lake, usually silent and covered with a thick layer of ice, looked particularly calm that day. Everything around was white, crisp, and covered with snow. People went about their business. No one knew that just a few hundred meters away, a lone animal was fighting for its life. First, there was a strange sound. A woman walking her dog stopped and listened. It wasn't the wind or the crackling of ice. It was a roar. A dull, heavy roar, as if someone were calling out. She approached the pier and saw the impossible. In the distance, a huge brown bear was floundering in a hole in the ice. He had fallen through the ice. His fur was wet, his body heavy, his paws clinging to the slippery edge. The bear roared, not out of anger, but out of despair. He was no longer struggling, but slowly reaching for the ice, each time weaker. It was clear that he had been making his way across the frozen lake for a long time, thinking that the ice would hold. But under his weight, it cracked. The locals called the rescue team, but they said, "We can't risk people's lives for a wild animal, especially a bear." And at that moment, Lucas McCrow appeared, a 47-year-old retired forester whom everyone in the village knew. He didn't ask any questions. He just looked at the ice, at the roaring animal, and said, "We don't have time. He won't last long." Lucas moved quickly and silently. He knew that if he thought too long, he wouldn't get anything done. He grabbed a folding ladder, a rescue rope, and an old climbing carabiner. His boots crunched on the snow as he walked towards the shore. The crowd stood behind him. No one dared to approach. Only phones were filming as the man walked toward the predator, drowning in the icy hole. He knew the ice. He knew where it cracked and where it held. But under his weight, it still groaned plaintively. He laid the ladder across the ice so he wouldn't fall through and lay down on it, crawling forward. 1 meter. Another. Another. The bear was barely moving. Its head was down, only its nose sticking out above the surface. Steam was coming from its mouth. Weak. It was on the verge. Lucas stopped 3 meters away. He couldn't shout. He might scare the animal, and it would sink to the bottom. He tied the rope to the carabiner, threw the noose, missed. Second time, missed again. On the third attempt, the noose slipped right under the bear's front paw. He pulled. The bear jerked weakly, caught. That was it. The moment had come. "Pull!" Lucas shouted, turning around. 3 men on the shore immediately grabbed the rope. It tightened and creaked. Lucas held onto the ice with all his might, and before his eyes, the bear began to rise, heavily but steadily. First its chest, then its belly, and at some point, its entire carcass fell onto the ice and remained motionless. Everyone froze. It was alive, but no one knew what condition it was in. The bear lay motionless on the ice, like a huge lump of fur, steam, and silence. People were afraid to approach it, even now. But Lucas slowly climbed down the ladder, cautiously approached the animal, and knelt down. He had seen cases like this before, and he knew that if there was still a chance, he had to act now. He placed his hand on the side of the bear's neck. Its heart was beating weakly, but it was beating. It was alive. "It needs warmth," Lucas said. "Quick, blankets! Everything you've got!" One man brought a sleeping bag. Someone else drove a car closer to the shore. The bear was slowly dragged off the ice, across planks and ladders, toward dry land. He didn't resist. He was too exhausted. But when his body was placed on a warm bedding by the fire, he quietly began to breathe louder. His paw twitched. His ear twitched. Lucas poured water from a thermos and carefully poured it nearby so as not to scare him. The bear turned his head with difficulty. He took a sip. The crowd, which had been watching just a minute ago, now stood in absolute silence. It was a moment when everyone suddenly saw in the huge predator not a threat, but simply a freezing, frightened living creature. About an hour passed. The bear was still lying there, exhausted, heavy, as if he had given up. But with every sip of water, with every minute spent by the fire, life seemed to return to him. He didn't try to get up. He just moved his paw slightly, sometimes raising his head and looking towards the forest. And there was something more than instinct in those glances. He understood that they would not harm him. Lucas sat nearby. He did not leave. He held the bear under his head, as one would do with an injured dog or human. He was not afraid, and he did not feel sorry for him. He was simply there, as if this were not the first time, but his last duty. "We can't leave him here," said one of the locals. "He won't survive on his own." "He has a chance," replied Lucas, "but he has to choose when to go." The people looked at each other, and then something unexpected happened. The bear got up, slowly, unevenly. His paws were shaking, but he was standing. He looked at the people, not with menace, but with some inexplicable dignity. Then he turned around, and, staggering, walked towards the forest. He looked back, once, silently, and then he disappeared into the snow, from whence he came. When the bear disappeared behind the wall of trees, the snow became the only sound again. No one spoke. Only the fire crackled, and smoke rose in a thin stream, disappearing into the pale sky. It wasn't just rescue, it was something more. Lucas remained sitting by the fire for a long time. His hands were shaking, not from the cold. For the first time, he allowed himself to breathe out. He didn't save the bear for the sake of a video, for fame, or for recognition. He saved it because he couldn't do otherwise. Later, a guy with a camera called out to him, "We filmed everything. It's already all over the internet. You're a hero." Lucas just shook his head. A hero is someone who fights for their life. I just helped. By evening, reporters, volunteers, and even zoologists had arrived at the lake. Some wanted to know the details, others wanted to find the bear's tracks. But there were almost no tracks left. Only an empty hole, dense in the snow, and a trampled path leading toward the forest. The crowd began to disperse. Lucas got up, gathered the ladder, put away the rope, and slowly walked away, without a word. And the story was just beginning. Because a few days later, the bear was seen again, but in a completely different place. Several days had passed since that fateful morning when the ice and cold nearly took the life of the big brown bear. The people in the village were still discussing what had happened, but for Lucas, it was not just a story. It was a memory that would stay with him forever. The bear was seen again at the edge of the forest, strong and alert, but cautious. His eyes were now full of life, and his movements were confident, though calm. He wandered near the trails, looking for food, and seemed to feel like part of the forest again. Every time he passed Silver Frost Lake, Lucas stopped and looked at the place of his rescue, the broken ice hole and the tracks in the snow. In these simple details, he saw not only the past, but also hope. Hope that humans and nature can live in harmony, that by saving wildlife, we also preserve a part of ourselves. The story quickly spread around the world. The video recordings of the rescue became a symbol of courage, compassion, and strength of spirit. The bear became more than just a hero of nature. He became a symbol of hope, an inspiration to thousands of people, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, it is possible to find light and a chance for a new life. For Lucas, it was more than just a rescue. It was a reminder that each of us has the ability to do good, even if the price is high.